What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to teach you how to set up your RockWedge LED rechargeable wireless DMX power light. They come in two colors of black and white, but the setup for each is the exact same. As you can see, it comes with the light itself, a lighting clamp to mount your light onto a truss, a wireless IR remote, and a power cable to recharge or to power your light. So you can take the female end of your power cable and plug it into the power in port on your light, and then plug your other end into a power outlet. After that, you'll see this LED pop on, letting you know your light is charging. If your light is completely dead, it will take about 10 hours to charge, and once it's completely charged, you can have your light running up to 15 hours. You can even electrically daisy chain your lights together through the power out port, so that your lights are charging all together. So now let's go ahead and turn on our light. Now there are many ways we can use the RockWedge LED, including wall washing. This creates a cool ambiance using the rubber feet on the bottom of the light that has your light shining completely up. To do this, you just want to place your light completely flush to your wall. And once you have it in the wall washing position, you can use any of the light's modes or colors, which we'll get to later on. Another way you can use your light is to light up a totem stand or a DJ facade. When using the light with a totem stand like our very own RTP32 or any of our other totem stands, you'll just want to lift up the scrim and place your light directly in the middle. And when using the light to light up a DJ facade, it's going to be very similar to wall washing. So you'll just want to place your light completely flush against your DJ facade. And depending on how big your DJ facade is, you can use multiple rock wedges for a more illuminated effect. And like I mentioned before, we can even mount our light onto a truss with the included clamp. To set your clamp onto your light, you're going to start by taking off this nut here and the washer pieces. Then we'll take the bolt out of the clamp. And as you'll see, there are 3 different holes we can use to attach our clamp. So once we know which hole we're going to use, we can take our washer piece here and line it up to the hole like so. Next, we'll take our bolt and run it through the bottom hole here of our clamp. Then we'll feed our second washer here and our nut. Then we'll line up our bottom part of the bolt here to our light, and then screw in the bolt with our clamp. We can even use a wrench to further secure the clamp onto our light. So now to mount the light onto a truss, we're going to loosen this fly bolt here. And once there's enough room between your bolt and your clamp, you can line up the clamp up to a spot on your truss, and then tighten up the fly bolt to secure your light onto the truss. Now there are many different options on the RockWedge LED that we can toggle through using the buttons here underneath the LCD display. To cycle through all the different modes, we can use the menu button. To change your adjustments and to save your adjustments, you'll use the enter button, and then you can use the up and down buttons to make your adjustments while in that mode. So let's go through all the different modes on the RockWedge LED. We can set the light into a 10-channel DMX mode and set the DMX address with the A settings. And we can do the same thing in a 6-channel DMX mode with the D settings. We'll get further into those later on. The CL mode acts as our static color mode, where we can cycle between all 32 colors. To change the color of your light in this mode, we'll press the enter button. From there, we can use the up and down buttons to cycle between each color, and press enter again to set your light in that color. The CC mode acts as a automatic color change mode, and we can adjust the cycle of the speed by pressing the enter button, use the up button to speed up the cycle, or the down button to slow down the cycle, and press enter again to save your changes. The EE mode acts as a pulse mode where the light pulses between each color, and again we can use the up and down buttons to adjust the speed of this mode. The FF setting is a color fade mode where the light fades in between each color. Again, we can adjust the speed of the color fade like we did with the other modes. There's even a strobe setting with the ST setting, and again we can adjust the speed of the strobe with the up and down buttons. There are also 3 different sound modes we can use with the light, but before we get to that, we have the SE setting, which allows us to set the sensitivity of the built-in microphone, which allows the light to change as it picks up sound. From there, we'll press the menu button to bring us to sound mode, and use the up and down buttons to set the light into the first sound mode. This acts as the standard sound mode that switches between each color as it picks up sound. So if I start clapping, you'll see the light go through each color. Sound mode 2 comes with a strobe effect and changes the color of the strobe as it picks up sound. So if I start clapping, you'll see the strobe and the change of color. And sound mode 3 pulses through each color as it picks up sound. So if I clap, you'll see the light come up and back down. There's also the LED mode where we can have the LED display turn off after 20 seconds. The IRCL mode allows you to turn on or turn off the infrared remote sensor that allows you to use the wireless IR remote, and we can even turn on or turn off the wireless DMX feature with the 2.4 GHz mode. There's a mode that will tell you the temperature your light's at. There's even a self-test mode that allows you to cycle between each color to let you know how your light is doing. Now, because this is an RGBWA+UV light, there are 6 different modes where we can adjust the intensity of the red, green, blue, white, amber, or ultraviolet LEDs. And playing with all of these settings allow you to customize or make variations of a bunch of different colors. Now say you have multiple RockWedge LED lights and you want to have more control over them in a stage production or live venue setup. There is a 6-channel DMX mode and a 10-channel DMX mode that you can use with your RockWedges and a DMX controller. Now using either 6-channel or 10-channel mode completely depends on your specific needs and how much control you want to have over your lights. The 6-channel mode gives you basic control over the 6 different colors available on your lights, while 10-channel mode gives you control over the colors, the different preset modes, and the speed of those modes. The benefit of using a DMX controller with your light is that you can create a synchronized lighting effect with multiple lights and control them all with the DMX controller. Now to wirelessly sync up your lights to your wireless DMX controller, we're going to start by setting the DMX code on the lights and the controller itself. To do that on our lights, we're going to use the wireless DMX code button and select a color to set the DMX code. So for today, we're going to use red. We're also going to do the same thing on our DMX controller. We're also going to want to set the lights to one of the DMX channel modes. For today, we'll use the 10-channel mode and use the up and down buttons to set the DMX address. For today, we'll use A001. Now you'll know your lights are synced to your controller if the code light on your controller flashes red, while the code light on your lights flash green. And from here we can go through all the different settings on our controller. Next we'll want to go to our controller and activate the first scanner here. So starting with fader 1, this acts as our master fader for the overall brightness of our lights. So we'll go ahead and raise that all the way up. Next to that we have fader 2, which controls the red LEDs. So if I raise that, you'll start to see the red coming through the lights. Fader 3 controls our green LEDs. Next to that we have fader 4 that controls the blue LEDs. Fader 5 controls our white LEDs here, Fader 6 controls our amber LEDs, and Fader 7 controls our ultraviolet LEDs. You can also set these faders in different positions for a fully customized color. And since Fader 1 acts as our master fader, I can lower that all the way down to have the lights off completely. Now Fader 8 controls our strobe mode, and where we set the fader determines the intensity of the strobe. So if I turn that all the way up, get a crazy strobe going on. If I lower it, not as much. Now fader 9 will control all of the different modes you can use. So when you move this fader up and down, it corresponds with this number here on the LCD display of your DMX controller. And where you have fader 9 set to determines the mode that you're on. So for example, if I raise fader 9 anywhere from 101 to 150, that will set the lights into a color fade mode. You can see a complete cheat sheet of fader 9 here. And fader 10 will control the speed of whichever mode we're in. So if I raise that while we're in the color fade mode, you'll see that the colors start to fade into each other faster, and if I lower it, they fade into each other slower. Now in case you didn't want to have a wireless setup, you can always use DMX cables to connect your lights to the controller. So we're going to start by taking one DMX cable. I'm going to take the male end and plug it into the DMX out of our controller. Then I'm going to connect the other end into the DMX in on our first light. And next we're going to connect the lights to each other by taking another DMX cable. I'm going to plug the male end into the DMX out of our first light. Then plug the other end into the DMX in on our next light. And if you wanted to connect even more lights, you're just going to follow the same steps. Now just like in our last setup, we're going to want to make sure to set the lights into the same DMX channel mode and the same DMX address. So for this setup, we're going to stick with the 10-channel mode and set it to the address of A001. So next we'll go back into our controller and press scanner 1. And now if I raise fader 1 and play with the LEDs, you should see them coming through the lights. Now if you didn't want to use a wireless DMX controller, but you still wanted to have multiple lights in sync, you can always use the master slave function. So we're going to start by turning both lights on, then we're going to want to set them to the same DMX code using the wireless DMX code button. So we'll do that first on whichever light we want to use as our master light. So in this case we'll go with this one here, and then we'll set the DMX code to whichever color we want to use. So for today we'll go with red. And then we're going to do the same exact thing on our slave light here. So now you'll know they're synced up when the master light flashes red and the slave light flashes green. After that, we can take the wireless remote to set our master light to a static color, and you'll see the slave light matches up. Now while we're in master slave mode, we can set the lights to any color or any mode by using the menu button on the master light, or we can do the same thing with the wireless remote control. So with the wireless remote, you can see I can set the lights to the static colors of red, green, blue, white, amber, or ultraviolet, as well as a variety of different mixed colors that you can select within this box here. We can also use the remote control to set the lights into different modes such as auto, strobe, fade, as well as whatever sound mode you last had your light set at. So in this case, we have it set to sound mode 1. Now sometimes if you use the remote and point it to the slave light to change color, it will only change the color of your slave light, which will throw your lights out of sync. So to avoid this, we recommend turning off the infrared control on all of your slave lights. This way you won't have to worry about throwing your lights out of sync while using the master slave function. We can also use the up and down buttons on the remote to change the speed of whichever mode we're in, and we can also use the remote to turn our lights off or back on. Now in case you didn't want to do this wirelessly, you can also connect your lights to each other through a DMX cable. So for this setup, we'll take the male end of our DMX cable and plug it into the DMX out of our master light. Then we'll plug the other end into the DMX in of our slave light. And if you want to connect more lights to your setup, you would just continue this process through your chain of lights. So now if I set my lights to a static color, you'll see that the LEDs come through both lights. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your RockWedge LED rechargeable wireless DMX par lights. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.